Hi everyone, and welcome back to this fantastic tutorial for Cinema 4D. This is Moises Perez, aka Moilovito, and I am very glad you're still here with us. In the following lessons, we will model the balcony, some doors and windows for the buildings. So let's begin. So here we are, and this is where we left last time. So now let's select this arch and press the letter S, and now we can select this lathe because we're going to recycle this object and we're just going to modify it. So let's copy and paste it, and now we have this at the very top of this object list. So we're going to use this object to make a balcony, and all we have to do is just modify it and we will have the balcony. So now let's make another copy and hide the first copy just in case we have to go back and start again. So now on the top view we can turn on the X-ray option for this lathe, and we can hide these other elements that we don't need at this moment so they don't get in our way. Now let's go back to the lathe, and using the rectangle selection we can now select all of these points and we're just going to move them on the x-axis. So first let's delete these polygons at the top. Just delete them. We don't need them, so we're just going to delete them. And now we can just make a new polygon with the create polygon tool, like that. That is going to work much better, and we can go ahead and do the same for the polygons at the bottom of this lathe and make a new polygon again with the create polygon tool. So now let's come back to the top view, and we can now on the edge mode select all of these edges and use the edge cut tool to make one division here, and we're going to select these other edges and we're going to cut again like that. So now we don't have any problems with the polygons. Okay, let's undo that, and first let's just move the points, and after that we can just use the edge cut tool so we have the polygons the same size. Okay, now we have this lathe modified. It is larger than it was before, and now let's take these other points and just move them. And now let's come to the perspective view, and we can see this object now if we render, and we can see that this is going to be the base for our balcony. Now we can just continue modifying these points until we have something close to the size as the one that we have in our reference image. And of course we can move this down so it is just where it has to be, right there. And we can just check here on Google Earth and make sure that we have the right thing. That looks very good. So now let's create a cube, and here on the top view we can reposition this cube and scale it down. And we're going to create those parts of this balcony, so we can make it even smaller and place it where it has to be. And we have to make it a little bit larger on the x-axis. Now let's just position it. And we can come to the perspective view and just continue modifying it. Now on the y-axis, and we can get closer to see this better. And now let's make it a little bit thinner. And we have to make this a little bit bigger. And we can come to the front view to check if the size is correct. And we're going to make it a little bit taller. That looks good. And we need 3 more of these. So let's make a copy and place it on the other side. And now I'm going to show you a different method for measuring distances. And this is maybe not the best method, but it kind of works for me. So if you want to use it, you can go ahead and use it. And you just have to have all of your objects that you want to place and just move them. And when you move them, you can see that some numbers come at the bottom, and those numbers tell you how long you are moving that object from the starting point. So if you move this cube 10 centimeters on one direction, you have to move the next one 10 more centimeters on the other direction. So you just have to play around until you find where it is that you have to leave both of your cubes. And you can do this with some tools here in Cinema 4D, and we're going to see that technique also when we create a chain later on this tutorial. But I just wanted to show you this other way, so you can use whatever you think works better for you. And here I'm using this ruler again to see how much I have to keep moving until these objects are equal in distance from each other. So this is just another technique. You don't have to use it. As I said before, later on I'm going to show you with a different tool in Cinema 4D how you can make instances, and on that tool you can specify the distance between each instance. So this is just one way. You can either use it or just not use it. That is up to you. So now let's just continue and make a copy of this lathe, and we're just going to move it up and place it on top of those cubes that we just made. And of course we can come to the front view and make sure that they are aligned. And now let's come to the perspective view, and here we can see how these objects are working together. And we're going to make a hole inside of this lathe that we just duplicated. Let's make a quick render, and that's how it's looking so far. So let's come a little bit closer, and they are working very well. So let's turn on the rest of the objects, and now we can come and select this polygon and make an inner extrusion. And of course we can come to the top view to see uh, from the top how this is going. So now let's just adjust the size of this extrusion. Just use the scale tool to do that. Now back to the top view. We can now just continue modifying this extrusion, and we're going to go ahead and delete those two polygons. And now we can come and select let's come to the perspective view, and first let's make sure that they are all selected, and we're just going to adjust them so they are on the same position as the points at the bottom. We can just move the whole thing closer to the building. Don't forget about the 4 cubes, like that. Let's make a new render, and that is looking very good. Let's get a little bit closer. Now let's select these, all of these objects, and make a new group from them. And we're just going to rename this group to balcony and hide it for a second. And now we just have to find these windows here, those that I have selected, because we have to get rid of those details at the bottom, because there is where we are going to place this balcony, so those details will not be there. So let's just find them and just hide them. You can just hide them, you don't have to delete them, you can just hide them. Hide this other one, and now we can continue and make this balcony visible. And as you can see, we have to modify these holes for the windows. So now we can come to the front view, and here we're just going to go to the point mode and select those points and move them down. But first, let's make this balcony invisible so we can see a little bit better. So we're just going to select those points and just move them down. And now we can use this balcony to guide us and see where we have to place those points. So now we just have to come here to this arch and take this tube a little bit down, and we're just going to do the same for the other one so it is complete. And let's go to the perspective view, and here we can see that we just have to change the size for these windows so they are the same size as these holes for these windows. So let's come and find the windows, and it's going to be window C and window D, and just scale those windows up and move them until they are on their place, something like that. Now here on the perspective view, we can check that everything is okay, and we can place our camera and make a render, and that looks very well. So now we can continue modeling the rest of the balcony, and for that we're going to come to the front view, and we're just going to make a new spline. So let's use the Bezier tool again, and We're just going to make a shape like this and just click and drag. So just continue, and at this point we're just half through, and we're just going to complete this spline by creating a new symmetry object. So let's go ahead and create that object, and we're just going to place this spline inside of this symmetry object, and let's move this whole symmetry object up a little bit, and I'll select the symmetry object and change the plane to XZ, and now we have this spline complete. And we can go to this point and move it so it is a little bit more rounded. And we can use a lathe object, and now we can place this spline in this way so it makes this cylindrical shape that is going to be part of this balcony that we are creating, but we have to make it smaller because as it is right now it's just too big. So let's just resize this object, make it smaller, and now we have to just place this object where it has to be. And as you can see, part of the process is just to adjust all of your objects until they are the right shape and the right size. So let's come now to the top view and move this object so it is on the same plane as the cubes that we made before, and now it is on place. So we can come here to the front view and just move it a little bit to the right because we are going to duplicate this object and uh, put it next to this one. But first we have to continue working on this before we make a copy. So let's come to the lathe object and just change the subdivisions so we don't have that extra geometry that we don't need. So 14 should work. So now let's get a little bit closer and we can see that we have a problem because this mesh is overlapping. So we're just going to move that point a little bit and that is going to fix that problem. And just move it to the left so it is a little bit more rounded, and this is what it looks when we render it, and it looks very good. So we can continue now. Let's select this uh, symmetry object and make it editable, pressing letter C, and now these are polygons and we can now work on this mesh. So now we can come here, select all of these points and come to the menu, Mesh, Commands, and select the Optimize option here. And we're just going to change this tolerance. We're just going to leave it like that. And we can see that it is not working very well, so we have to change the value. So again, let's come to the menu, Mesh, Commands, and Optimize, and let's just change that to 0.2, and that works better. And you can see now the before and the after. And this is just to have less polygons and just to eliminate the polygons that we don't need and all of these points that we don't need. So first, let's select all of these points because they are 2 points instead of 1. They are close together, but now when we apply this command, this will merge. So now it's only one mesh. You can see. Now we can come and select everything and just come back to this menu, Mesh, Normals, and Reverse Normals. So you can see that now these normals are now facing the right way. So now let's just continue. So this object is pretty much finished. We just have to make a new copy and move it to the right, like so. And we're just going to use the same technique that we used before. Just place it on the start and move this one 8 centimeters to the left. So we have to move this other one 8 centimeters to the right, like that. Now we can make this a new group, and we're just going to name it A. And duplicate this group, name it B, and position it where it has to go. And duplicate it again and rename it to C, and just move it and place it like that. And we have to make another copy here for the sides, rename it to D, and just move it and rotate this group and continue moving it. Just place it on the side here. And now we can come to the perspective view and see this object and how it is working with the rest of the building, and it looks very well. So now we can copy this one, rename it to E, and just move it to the other side. Get closer just to make sure that it is on the right place. Now here on the perspective view we can see this object, and we can rotate and see how this will look when we render it. So now let's select all of these groups and place them inside of this balcony group here. And now this balcony is pretty much finished. Make a render and we can see that this is going pretty well. Now let's get a little bit closer and let's just change the size for this cube. Let's change that to 20. Do the same here for this other one. And we're just going to do the same for the other one, for the first cube and the fourth cube. And I think this looks better. Just make a quick render. And yes, it does look better. And now we can say that this balcony is done. We can just make another render and that looks pretty well. And this is all for this video, but we are still have lots of things to learn. So I will see you on the next lessons. Thanks for watching.